Hare Krishna. This,
Hare Krishna.
this morning we will read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 5, text 28, Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam. I will first read the Sanskrit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Itam Sarat Pravikisafrito Hare Vishrim Vatome Novasham Yaso Malam Sankirtyamanam Munibir Mahatmabir Bhakti Pravitatma Rajastamopaha. Word for word translation. Itam, thus, Sarat, autumn. Praviksha, Pravishika, rainy season. Ritu, 2 seasons. Hare, of the Lord. Vishrimvata, continuously hearing. May, myself, Anusavam, constantly. Yasa amalam, unadulterated glories. Sankirtyamanam, chanted by. Munibi, the great sages. Mahatmabi, the great souls. Bhaktihi, devotional service. Pravritta, began to flow. Atma, living being. Raja, mode of passion. Dhamma, mode of ignorance. Upaha, vanishing. The translation by His Divine Grace Abhayacharanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and the autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great soul sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of the Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished. Now the purport. Transcendental loving service for the Supreme Lord is a natural inclination of every living being. The instinct is dormant in everyone, but due to the association of the material nature, the modes of passion and ignorance cover this from time immemorial. If by the grace of the Lord and the great soul devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with the unadulterated devotees of the Lord and gets a chance to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord, certainly the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. As the river flows on, still it reaches the sea. Similarly, pure devotional service flows by the association of pure devotees till it reaches the ultimate goal, namely transcendental love of God. Such a flow of devotional service cannot stop. On the contrary, it increases more and more without limitation. The flow of devotional service is so potent that any onlooker also becomes liberated from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. These 2 qualities of nature are thus removed, and the living being is liberated, being situated in his original position. Om Mahyanati Mandasya Jananjana Sanaka Saksvami Tamjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Chitchetayam Anubhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shvamrapakadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shio Shri Yoda Padakamanam Shigam Vaishnavam Sam Shri Upam Jagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakalita Shivishakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhudina Bandho Chatpate Kopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansana Gaurangira De Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Satyadevi Panamama Haripre Vakha Kalptra Visha Kripa Sinvavisha Patinam Pavanabhyo Vashyambhyo Namo Namah Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sati Gaura Bhaktavan Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarani. So we have heard in previous verses how about the beginning of the previous life of Narada Muni, how he took birth as the son of a maidservant who was serving these Bhakti Vedantas during the rainy season. And here we find a very important verse, a crucial verse, because there Narada Muni describes how his heart became cleansed. In that heart become cleansed means also his intelligence became cleansed. And the devotion destroyed the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance. That is what we need to destroy these coverings. It's destroyed by devotion to Lord Krishna. That and nothing else can remove that. Srila Jiva Goswami, he comments, as devotion developed in Narada, which came directly from his fixed intelligence. It came from his fixed intelligence. This Askalita Mater, that devotion destroyed remained passion, destroyed any remaining passion and ignorance. So devotion comes from that is fixed intelligence. Bhagavad Gita is called Vyavasatmika Buddhi Ekana, Vyavasatmika Buddhi Ekana, I forgot, but anyway, this is one-pointed intelligence on one point. That and what is that point? That point is Krishna. We serve devotional service, bhakti, means service to Krishna, directed toward Krishna, and with devotion. And the intelligence that arranges everything towards that purpose means the intelligence must engage the senses, the mind, the senses in the service of Krishna always. Then from such an intelligence, this devotion comes. And that cleanses passion and ignorance. So we are hearing here about the development of love for Krishna. And how does that develop? That by association with exalted devotees. That and this is what is described in the following verses. That in the purport, Srila Prabhupada already has stressed that if by the grace of the Lord and the great soul devotees of the Lord, A living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with unadulterated devotees of the Lord and gets a chance to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord. Certainly, flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. So how to attain it? That, one must, it's by the grace of great souled devotees of the Lord. That's the first thing. That, and then associate with him. And we will hear how Narada Muni will associate with him, with them, by hearing from them, by serving them, and then this flow of devotional service takes place. So we must come in that flow of devotional service to Krishna by association of devotees, especially hearing from them. But there is more. That's because this is a general principle, but in the next verse, Srila Prabhupada will deepen that. Tashaiva me nuraktasya prasritasya hatainasa shadadanasya balasya dantasya nusarasya cha. I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. So strictly following them with body and mind. A very important instruction here. That so we attain the same result if we are doing exactly the same thing. That strictly following with body and mind. Srila Prabhupada explains this in the purport, an important purport. So these are the necessary qualifications of a prospective candidate who can expect to be elevated to the position of a pure, unadulterated devotee. That such a candidate must always seek the association of pure devotees. One should not be misled by a pseudo-devotee. He himself must be plain and gentle to receive the instructions of such a pure devotee. A pure devotee is a complete surrendered soul unto the personality of Godhead. He knows the personality of Godhead as the supreme proprietor and all others as his servitors. And by the association of pure devotees only, one can get rid of all sins accumulated by mundane association. A neophyte devotee must faithfully serve the pure devotee and should be very much obedient and strict following the instructions. These are the signs of a devotee who is determined to achieve success even in the existing duration of life. So what is the emphasis of this verse, of these verses, also the previous ones? It is devotee association and hearing in the association and then following their instructions. So that is becoming disciplined, becoming a disciple. That because it is hearing and follow the instructions. That means it starts with attentive hearing. We are hearing attentively. And then, if we are hear attentively, we must understand what we are hearing. That it is said the quality of a guru are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as one who has realize the scriptures by deliberation. Deliberation means I understand the spiritual technique. I know how to apply it in my life. How to apply it. And then I apply it, and I must have the result that is described, and we will hear about this result in the next verses. So it's a process, the hearing. It's not just hearing. No, it's hearing, understanding, deliberation, then practice, applying, and getting the results. It's a whole process, this hearing process. But to understand and that deliberation, that deeper understanding, we get by association with pure devotees, by asking questions and getting questions and answers are very important to the spiritual master. Then, even if we don't ask questions, but others ask questions, many times Krishna makes it as such that others ask questions that apply also to us, and we learn. We learn by that. But that is a discipline, like that deliberation. I know Bhakti Charamach instructed his disciples, if you memorize the verse of the Bhagavatam for the next morning's Bhagavatam class the day before. That was his instruction, the Sanskrit and the English. Nobody of us can really do that. I don't know any disciple who could do it, but that's factually what we should do. That take it very serious and study it the day before, memorize it, and read the purport. And if you have questions, we note the questions down, and then next morning you come to the class. And that will facilitate the hearing process, that we were not so qualified as Narada Muni, that we were also not so qualified as Arjuna, but we can, by seriously trying to apply this process, make progress without a doubt. So the emphasis is here on devotee association, and hearing in association and following. Hearing, but between the hearing and the following, you must understood it, how to apply it. Otherwise, you cannot follow it. So that is the meaning of becoming a disciple. And Narada Muni, he was a staunch, exemplary disciple, although he was a boy of 5 years old. He took it very serious. Text 30. Jnanam kuyatamam yattat saksat bhagavato titam. Amba vochan hyamisyanta kepayadina vatsala. That as they were leaving, those Bhaktivedantas were very kind to full-hearted devotees, instructed me in that most confidential subject, which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself. So Srila Prabhupada, he explains in the purport that this most confidential knowledge is not knowledge of Brahman, but it was knowledge of the personal feature of the Lord, and knowledge of the living entity and our relationship with the Lord. Surrender. Sarvdam Praja Mamakam Sambhajan Tvam Sarvapabhyamukshya Yashisyami Machucha. So this is confidential knowledge. Therefore, it's also in the heart of Bhagavad Gita that is knowledge in a practical sense. Man manabhav mat bhakto machi mam namaskar mama vaishas satyam te pachani payosimi. Think always of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That become his devotee and worship him with devotion. That so that is the confidential knowledge. It was not the knowledge of Brahman. That so that it's knowledge of who the Lord is and what our relationship with him is, and how we can live in a relationship with Krishna. Krishna consciousness is living in a relationship with Krishna constantly, feeling him in your heart. Before you do something, you consider your friend in your heart. And what does he want? Because that's a relationship. You want to please the beloved always. You are very careful in your dealings. You want to follow Krishna's instructions or the spiritual master's instructions. So Shiva Goswami, he comments on this verse. This confidential knowledge that the great sages discussed was the Chaturshloka Bhagavatam, from which the whole Bhagavatam has been expanded. So these 4 verses of the second canto, chapter 9, verses 36 till 36, 33 till 36. Evamam, evam, evache, before the creation, there was only I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after the creation, there was only I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the creation between is a temporary creation, which comes from Krishna. And since it comes from Krishna, the next verse, that if we don't see the relationship with everything in this world with Krishna, then we are in illusion, the verse says, defines illusion. It has no value. Therefore, one should understand that everything is, the third verse, that I'm everything, but that I'm different from everything at the same time. In the 4th verse, and one should search for that knowledge which connects us with Krishna in this world. So that is confidential knowledge. This knowledge is above the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman, which is just this knowledge of the impersonal Brahman is knowledge of Krishna's eternal Sadhini Shakti, his eternal feature, then and his Brahman effulgence, which is his impersonal representation. But that comes from Krishna. Brahman and Paramatma cannot exist without Krishna. They are his expansions. So Narada heard this from the Bhaktivedantas. He also learned it from Brahma, Lord Brahma, and he wants this knowledge to be emphasized by Srila Vyasadeva here. He said, "You did not emphasize that." And what was the result of that? Because you did not emphasize that. People are thinking that the goal of the Vedas is this karma kandil, this fruitive sacrifices and so on, and worship of the demigods. You did not glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead sufficiently. You did not explain deeply this process of devotional service. So, text 31. Yanavaham Bhagavato Vasudevasya Vedasam Mayanabhavama Vidvam Yena Gajanti Tatpatam. By that confidential knowledge, I could understand clearly the influence of the energy of Lord Sri Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. By knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him. So that's I will read. Yeah. From the middle of the purport, I think, yeah. So it's here. The Lord desires that, as he has directly said in Bhagavad Gita, that all conditioned souls rotting in the kingdom of material energy come back to him by giving up all engagement in the material world. This is the most confidential part of knowledge. So giving up all engagements in the material world. That's quite renunciation. But if we practice devotional service correctly, and with the knowledge that everything belongs to Krishna, not to us, and that everything is for the enjoyment of Krishna, and we use everything with devotion as a service to Krishna, then, yes, we are in complete knowledge. Then we give up all material engagement in the material world, if we just do that always. So that's the most confidential part of knowledge. But this can be understood only by pure devotees. Yes, because it's confidential. Nam prakasha sarvasya, Bhagavad Gita said, I'm not revealing myself to everyone, Krishna says. Only Bhaktiya Mama Vijanti Abhyasasmi Tattva, only my devotees can know me. So this is the most confidential knowledge, part of knowledge. So many read Bhagavad Gita, but still they don't get the confidential knowledge. You can receive it only by the mercy of a pure devotee. But this can be understood only by the pure devotees, and only such devotees can enter the kingdom of God to see him personally and serve him personally. The concrete example is Narada himself, who attained this stage of eternal knowledge and eternal bliss. And the ways and means are open to all, provided one agrees to follow in the footsteps of Sri Narada. According to Shruti, the Supreme Lord has unlimited energies that without effort by him. And these are described under three principal headings as above mentioned. Yeah. So Narada is going to take a little break from his explanation of his previous birth now, and he's going to speak strongly to Vyasadeva again, because he wishes Srila Vyasadeva to write Srimad Bhagavatam. It is by the living entities hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the glories of the Lord, that the root of their material existence is cut at the very root, at the level of Bhakti Parchi Jan Gunan Sadasatyon Min Janmaso, at the root of their attempt to enjoy in the material world. The Lord wants us to turn again to Him and understand that we are His servants. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, we are meant to be utilized in devotional service. Therefore, he says, that we are meant to be utilized in devotional service. That the text 32 will be the last verse we will read today. Etam samsochitam brahmams tapatraya sikirshitam yatishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. O Brahma Vyasadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we will start reading a part of the purport. Sri Narada personally experienced that the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or get relief from all miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. This is the only remedial process. The only remedial process. To hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. But in this verse, it says the method to get free is to dedicate one's activities to the Lord. So what is the connection? Which is more remedial, the hearing or the serving? Good question. We are trapped in the material world because we don't want to serve Krishna. That's the problem. This is just what no one wants to hear in this world. But unless we hear about Krishna and by the hearing process become attached to him, we won't have the tendency, the determination, the unflinching determination, especially over a long period of time. Because this is what is required. When we first join, we think, oh, we just chant Hare Krishna. Very simple. But by superficial consciousness, we can't get in. We need to be pushed deeper and deeper and deeper, and Krishna will do that. But we need to hear properly and have unflinching faith and good association. When our faith and determination starts wavering and quivering, we need good devotee friends, good Vaishnava association. Hearing is most remedial because from that comes the desire to serve. From that hearing comes the desire to serve. This is why who we are. We are Krishna's servants. This is the very core of our being. We are not the body, not the mind, and all the other attempts to remove our misery, as Srila Prabhupada explains, fail. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that unless Krishna sanctions it, we can't do anything. So we go now to the end of the purport. Let's see. That starts here. So the best thing is, after all, to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing transcendental pastimes of the Lord. That's what we do in the Bhagavatam class, right? But in case of the absence of such an opportunity, that one should try to engage in the service of the Lord everything for which one has specific attraction, and that is the way of peace and prosperity. So wherever we are, whatever tendencies we have, whatever we are good in, whatever our talents are, give them back to Krishna by engaging in his service. If we have the ability, if we are pure enough, we can chant all day long. But if not, then we should use everything for Krishna's service. But as explained later, that there is something else to do while we are using everything in Krishna's service. But one can say, I've been working so hard and my work has caused me so much anxiety. I want to become a devotee and avoid working. But this work is of a different quality. It is meant for Krishna's pleasure. So this, what Srila Prabhupada is saying here, that yes, serving, that the quality of serving depends on hearing. The serving should be done with a quality in consciousness. So consciousness should be the desire to use everything in Krishna's service for the pleasure of Krishna, without asking something in return. And that quality should be there always, in whatever we do. That's our training, to come to that point, always do it for Krishna, that for his pleasure, without asking something in return. And that will break this. Purusha paratistre bhukte parati janganam. Karanam gunasangrasya satasajani janmasu. This verse explains how we associate with material nature. We associate by bhukte parati janganam. We want to enjoy things in this material world. But if our body, mind, and so on is busy with serving Krishna, then we don't have time for these things. We are not under the modes of material nature. That I will still read one verse more, text 33. Amayayasa bhutanam jayate yena suvrata tatte vayatmayam dravyam napunatum sikichitam. O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing? That Srila Prabhupada explains this in the purport. An expert physician treats his patient with a therapeutic diet. For example, milk preparations sometimes cause disorder of the bowels, but the very same milk converted into curd and mixed with some other remedial ingredients cures such disorders. Similarly, the threefold miseries of material existence cannot be mitigated simply by material activities. Such activities have to be spiritualized, just as iron is made red hot by fire. Iron is made red hot, and thereby the action of fire begins. Similarly, the material conception of a thing is at once changed as soon as it is put into the service of the Lord. This is the secret of the spiritual process. We should not try to lord it over material nature, nor should we reject material things. The best way is to use a bedbargain. The best use of a bedbargain is to use everything in relationship with the Supreme Spiritual Being. Everything is an emanation from the Supreme Spirit, and by his inconceivable power he can convert spirit into matter and matter into spirit. Therefore, a material thing so-called is at once turned into a spiritual force by the great will of the Lord. The necessary condition of such a change is to employ so-called matter in the service of the Spirit. This is the way to treat our material disease and elevate ourselves to the spiritual plane, where there is no misery, no lamentation, no fear. When everything is thus employed in the service of the Lord, we can experience that there is nothing except the Supreme Brahman. The Vedic mantra that everything is Brahman is thus realized by us. So this is very important, because we have so many material desires, things that we want to do, that we are good in, so Prabhupada said many times, yeah, you want to do business for Krishna. Whatever we are good in, do it for Krishna. Because it's by association with material nature we are trying to enjoy the things of the material world through our work, and we entangle ourselves. That is this Bhumte Paratijangunam. But the same word can be used to unentangle us. That when we drink too much milk, then yogurt can cure the disease of drinking too much milk, and it cures that the disease caused by overindulgence in milk. So we will stop here today, and next time we will start with text 34, in which gives the philosophy to back up this example. Any question or comments, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj. Very nice class. So Maharaj, I have a couple of I think verse 28 was mentioning about having association and serving the pure devotee. Yeah. So Maharaj, I know the one answer to my question would be we can serve through Vani. Because my question more related to our situation here. We are not getting a lot of association or opportunity to serve pure devotees, or the senior devotees or Maharajas here. So what is the Shastric answer to such situation? Like, how can we continue and get the benefit?
Yeah, that's a good question. When the spiritual master is not there, there are no senior devotees, help us. That is indeed a serious issue. Of course, Krishna has put us in a certain situation, but he will always offer opportunities that it is important, even if there are no senior devotees, that we discuss daily Bhagavatam among ourselves. And if there are questions, then later they can be asked to advanced devotees or senior devotees. And by that we get a deeper insight. But wherever topics of the Lord are discussed, that is in the Shastra, Krishna says, whenever topics of me are discussed, I'm present there. So and Krishna will work to our hearts. I'm present there. So if we are seriously going to that process of a hearing, understanding, deliberation, applying, then we will get the results. But there is also the connection with the pure devotees by engaging in their mission. So that is, if we try to engage in pure devotional service and hear daily the Bhagavatam, that combination will help us to cleanse the heart. So association with Prabhupada is always there to his books, but we must churn it in association of devotees. That there is no senior devotees that we cannot churn. No, we can churn and discuss it, and Krishna will work in our heart. And if there are questions or whatever, you keep them till the next occasion, and you ask senior devotees. So that's the basic principle. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. And regarding serving the pure devotees, Maharaj, as per Shastra, like this example, Narad Muni got opportunity to physically serve them. So, how would we serve? Should serving through the instruction, it's sufficient and equivalent?
That certainly that Narada Muni was serving them personally, but he was serving them also by hearing. That's also part of the service. And they became pleased by his attentive hearing. So that's a most important service. Srila Prabhupada said many times, I have only one qualification, that I like to hear. That's what the spiritual master said about him. Yes, he likes to hear. So that's most important service. Because if we like to hear, then you hear and you understand the instructions of the sages of the Bhagavatam. And these are also the instructions of the spiritual master. But it starts with this attentive hearing. So that's the most important, attentive hearing. And then according to the hearing, you execute the instructions that you are hearing. And that's the best service to the spiritual master. Because that makes us Krishna conscious. The devotee asked Srila Prabhupada that what pleases you the most, Srila Prabhupada? And Srila Prabhupada said, What pleases me the most is that you become Krishna conscious. And that is the process explained here today. That it's a simple process, but in its application, it's not easy to hear, because we are too dull-minded in Kali Yuga, always disturbed and so on. But we should make it our priority still. All our problems we put aside and hear the Bhagavatam. And that will really help us. That's really what helps us. Does that help? Does that make
Yes,
sense?
Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. And one small question, Maharaj, if you have time. Maharaj.
Yeah.
So, Maharaj, about deliberation. So, what I understood, and if you can please correct me. So once we hear, then try to understand, and then try to use that understanding deliberately in our day-to-day life. Is that correct understanding, Maharaj? Deliberation.
Deliberation means how can I apply it in my time, place, and circumstances? So that is important. What practical value is there for me so that I can realize this knowledge? How can I realize this knowledge in practice? That's the point. And therefore, many times we need the help of a spiritual master, or we need to discuss it with devotees to clear our doubts, that we clearly know what to do. And Krishna will help us for win the heart if we are sincere. So that's the essence, I think. Hare Krishna. Anything?
Yes. No, I'm good, Maharaj.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm looking
Thank you very
forward
much.
to see you next week for the last section of this very important chapter. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.